Hi, good afternoon to everyone. I hope all of you are safe and sound and following COVID appropriate behavior. Avinash, can we go to slide number 4? If you look at global economy, central banks continue to print money. In just last 6 years, they have increased their balance sheet by almost 2 times from $10 trillion to $20 trillion. And if you look at over last, let's say, 2008 onwards, they have grown up by more than 4 times from 5 trillion to $20 trillion. Next slide, please. As central bankers kept on printing money, the asset prices get supported, equity market went up, housing market went up, fixed income market appreciated as rates came down. And if you look at US household net worth, it has grown by $25 billion in last year. And similar kind of growth was witnessed over a almost 6 years period between 2009 to 2015. That is the kind of wealth effect unleashed by central banks printing of money. Obviously, when central banks are printing money, the economy rebounds. And globally, post-COVID, we have seen economic growth rebounding. In calendar year 2020, global GDP declined by 3.3%. But next year, that is current year, it is rebounding to 6%. And even year after those, it is likely to remain above the pre-COVID growth rates. Now, when households are spending money because they are feeling wealthy, central banks are printing money, interest rates are low, then obviously corporates will have one of the highest profitability. Next slide, please. Now, as companies are enjoying higher profitability, consumers are spending, demand is increasing, and so has inflation. The current inflation in US is running at about 5% year-on-year growth level. Now, normally when inflation rises, central bank is supposed to pursue tight monetary policy and raise policy interest rate. The US Fed is likely to raise interest rates by 50 basis points based on the dot chart in calendar year 2022. The good sign on inflation is the drop in agriculture commodity prices. Commodity prices have started softening in last 1 month. If you look at crude, metals, and food commodity prices, they all have grown rapidly in 2020 and 2021, but it looks like as if they are topping out now and should start declining in the days to come. Now, the conundrum for market: stocks all-time high, home prices all-time high, core inflation highest since 1992, job openings all-time high, junk bond yields all-time low, and Fed is keeping interest rates near zero and also spending billions of dollars for buying bonds. Can this sustain? Now, if you look at market behavior, while inflation rate has gone up, interest rates have almost remained the same. In fact, in recent times, inflation, while going up, interest rates have actually declined from 1.65% to 1.4%. Now, please look at this chart carefully. This shows what is America's today's situation is. The green line represents their revenue. It has grown, but nothing comparable to the debt growth in America. The yellow line represents the deficit, and you could see that in COVID period, deficit has expanded almost more than the entire revenue. And correspondingly, the debt numbers have gone through the roof to touch almost $30 trillion. Coming to Indian economy, if you look at headlines in June 21, on exports front, we had very good growth. Agri exports touched $41 billion in 2021, highest ever. Direct tax mop-up is increasing despite economic disruption. Power consumption this today crossed 200 gigawatts for the first time in our history. EPFO also added almost 13 lakh new subscribers in April. Traffic was back to pre-COVID level. Foreign exchange reserve is extremely comfortable. Current account became surplus for the first time after 17 years in FY21. And this momentum is sustaining in current quarter. So overall economic news was positive throughout the month of June after some negative news in April and May. Active cases have started declining, and today addition is about 40 to 50,000 cases a day, which is almost 10% of what was added at the peak of second wave. And compared to 40 odd lakh cases which we had, current active cases are around less than 5 lakh. The one sign of worry, in many districts, people are not following COVID appropriate behavior. And compared to 2 weeks, where there were very few districts where COVID cases were rising, now in India, we are seeing many districts where COVID cases have started rising. Let us hope and pray that with COVID appropriate behavior, we are able to control this across most of the districts. Ultimately, for us, hope is related to vaccination. We created world's record-breaking vaccination of more than 80 lakh vaccines in a single day. And now we are looking to average about 12 to 13 crore vaccines per month. In the month of May and June, there was little bit of lockdown on a regional basis that resulted into drop in PMI. The drop in PMI was significantly lower compared to the first wave. In the first wave, we dropped from 55 to almost 30. In the second wave, we dropped from 55 to just about 50. So that way, PMI fall in second wave is much, much softer compared to the first wave. The GST collection during the first wave had dropped almost 71%. In the second wave, it has dropped, but dropped about half of that at about 32%. So both PMI and GST does indicate that the first wave was far more detrimental from economic point of view. Second wave, due to regional lockdown rather than national lockdown, was far less detrimental to economic activities. The same thing is witnessed in business resumption index. During first wave, it fell from 100 to 45, a 55% drop. In the second wave, it dropped from 98 to 60, about 32% drop. And today, it's trading at almost 92, near to the pre-COVID level. E-way bills are growing in the month of June. The automobile registrations have also grown in the month of June. All this are giving indication of normalizing economy. Monsoon, thanks to the rain god, is expected to be normal. It has taken a little bit of breather on Western India, but it is expected to still remain normal throughout the rest of the rainy season. Unemployment rate during first wave had gone from 6 to 25. Second wave, it went from 6 to 13. And currently, number is about 8.3%, which is little above pre-COVID level. Hopefully, in the month of July, it should come down. Coming to equity markets, the outperformance of mid-cap over large cap continued. Outperformance over small cap over large cap also continued. A lot of this performance was driven by metal stocks, steel, aluminum, copper, and technology services, which resulted into this massive outperformance of small cap and mid cap over large cap. The EPS estimates have been revised upwards for Sensex and Nifty. Now, Nifty EPS estimates are of roughly 715 for current year for FY22 and 843 for 2023. Retail investors' participation in stock market is increasing quarter on quarter. Last quarter, they pumped in close to $6 billion plus in equity market directly. Even in mutual fund, we have started seeing positive flows from retail investors. Foreigners have continued to remain bullish on India. They have collectively put more than $35 billion in Indian market over the last 12 months, whereas compared to that, most emerging markets from Indonesia to Thailand to South Korea have witnessed outflows. Maybe foreigners are looking at long-term track record of India, where it has been one of the best performing market over last decade plus, just little below US Dow Jones Index. If you look, there are many investors who go and invest in precious commodities like silver, gold, and such precious metal. The dollar return delivered by them over the last 12 years pales compared to what return has been delivered on the stock market and some of these sectors. So compared to gold, you should invest in gold, and entrepreneurs continues to hold true. One interesting thing which foreigners are probably looking is that in India's case, despite GDP growing negative in FY21, the earnings growth is expected to be positive. This decoupling of corporate earnings from GDP is one reason why we have seen stock market going up despite GDP coming down. If you look at this bull market over similar bull markets, the longest running bull market was 2003 to 2008 for almost 5 years period, where equities went from roughly about 4,000 all the way up to 21,000. This time, the bull run has almost doubled the market from 7,500 Nifty to close to 15,500 Nifty. It has happened in a much shorter time period compared to the past. The spike is also a little bit sharper. However, we do believe that there is longer time for this bull run to continue. Of course, instead of spiking further like this, it may start moderating like this in the days to come. This is also witnessed in the broad-based rally in stock market, and number of stocks in Sensex, which hasn't hit 52-week low. It's now almost at 279 days in this rally. This is one of the longest rally where stocks haven't hit the bottom yet. What is our call on market now? On valuation basis, we are saying neutral weight equity. Momentum wise, also it is neutral weight equity. And neutral weight equity doesn't mean that you sell your equity. It just means that you reduce your leverage, you reduce your overweight position. If you look at market cap to GDP ratio, current Indian market cap to GDP ratio is 102%. Our average market cap to GDP ratio has been 77% over last 10 years. But currently, global market cap to GDP ratio is 138%. Compared to 77, 102 looks higher, but compared to 138, 102 looks reasonable. And hence, we are sticking to equal weight allocation on equity. If you look at on a price to earning basis, against historical average of 18, current P is roughly about 20, and on a price to book against historical average of 2.6, current is roughly 3. It's at a little premium, but looking at global valuation, we stick to our call of neutral allocation to equity. One more reason which has worked well for stock market, especially during pre-COVID. In last 1 year, corporates have used cash flow to reduce their leverage. Refineries have paid back almost 83,000 crore worth of debt. Steel sector, roughly about 35,000 crore worth of debt. And similar trend is witnessed across the curve, across the segment. Companies are deleveraging at a very, very fast pace, making their capital structure solid. Now, this is a very, very interesting chart. NSE 500 companies' profit declined during the first wave from 53,000 crore to 32,400 crore. September, against all odds, it went up to 1,76,000 crore. December, it went up to 2,09,000 crore. And March 21, based on the results which have come out and some estimates, it's likely to be 2,10,000 crore. This is the highest ever quarterly profit given by India Inc. in last 3 quarters. 176 was the highest ever quarterly profit. So was December's 2,09,000, and so is March 2,10,000. If you look at on a trailing basis, the cumulative profit for FY21 is roughly about 6,29,000 crore, and the P ratio on that basis is 34. If I annualize this 2,10,000 crore number, I'm getting a profit of 8,40,000 crore. On that basis, trailing forward P will become 25. And the street is expecting NSE 500 companies to declare profit of roughly about 9,20,000 crore. On that basis, P will come to about 23. If you go further into FY23, P will fall to 20. This growth in profitability from 32,000 crore to 2,10,000 crore, almost 7 times growth, is the reason why markets have gone up. This is another interesting analysis done by our team. If you look at just profit of 1,000 profitable companies, remember the previous slide was about 500 NSE companies. This is about top 1,000 profitable companies in the country. In COVID environment, their profitability growth has actually improved. They were going down in 2019, but 2020-21, they have bounced back nicely. This is another interesting chart. If you look at market capitalization, it has moved over a period of time. This is for top 1,000 profitable companies. However, if you look at their P ratio, it has remained in a very narrow band of 18 to 22, back to 20. This means that market cap has kept on increasing only because profitability has also improved. It is the growth in profitability which is creating market cap for top 1,000 companies rather than re-rating of PE ratio. What is our call right now? We are saying it's time to be equal weight to equity, and within that, be marginal overweight large cap and marginal underweight small and mid cap. If you remember, in July 2019, we had given overweight call in mid and small cap. Since then, small cap has outperformed large cap by about 23%, and mid cap has outperformed by about 19%. Now we are closing that call to become marginal underweight small and mid cap. We were overweight equity in April 2020 because of the valuation. From that point of time, Nifty is up about 38%. And in September 20, we gave a neutral weight call on equity. And since then, Nifty has also gone up 38%. Why are we giving a slight reduction call on small and mid cap? You see 1 year performance or rolling return of small and mid cap. It has almost reached all-time high level. We think at this level, it is time to take some profit on small and mid cap. Why are we not saying complete get out of small and mid cap? Because on a 3-year basis, there is still significant gap vis-a-vis previous peak. So it is a very, very tactical call where we are saying if you have overweight position in small and mid cap, you may consider taking some amount of profit. This is also an interesting slide. There is very small difference between labh, which is profit, and lobh, which is greed. We are just trying to control this small tail so that your profit remains intact. Coming to what are the opportunities which are available in equity market? Well, all of you are consumer of Amazon, Visa, Netflix kind of companies. We are coming out with an NFO of Kotak Global Innovation Fund of Fund, which will allow you to become part owner of these companies. Since we don't know how to manage global companies' portfolio, we have joined hands with Wellington Asset Management based in Boston. They were founded in 1928 and now have 9 decades of experience in managing money. They have about $1.3 trillion managed across 2,385 clients from the globe. And based on this track record, one of the best active fund managers in the world, we have decided to join hands with them and launch a fund of fund which will go and invest in their global innovation fund. Next slide, please. This global innovation fund is managed by them on a bottom-up stock selection process called TIBR scores. T stands for trend, where objective is to go and invest in those companies which are setting secular trends which will continue to grow for a long period of time. The second one is innovation, where the objective of this fund is to invest in companies which are constantly innovating, which are constantly outperforming their rivals. It could be either through differentiated business model or process or ability to adopt and change to suit requirement. In TIBR, B stands for barriers. Everyone wants to understand what moat is built by a company so that they have free run on profitability path. In R, TIBR, R stands for risk. What are the risks of getting disrupted? What are the specific risks which company and industry poses? And what is done to manage that? They rank all their portfolio companies on trend, innovation, barriers, and risk to arrive at a TIBR composite score. And based on that score, they go and invest in companies. Their top 10 large cap holdings are from Amazon to Aptiv. And I have my colleague Arjun Khanna, which will talk about some of the companies, not Amazon's Alphabet, Facebook, Visa, which all of you know, but some of the unknown names like Prologix or Aptiv. Arjun, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Before I enter that, I'll probably talk of AstraZeneca also, because for everyone, when they look at innovation, they think of information technology. So all of us have AstraZeneca in terms of Covishield vaccination, but AstraZeneca has done great amount of work using your own immunity to cure cancer. So in a sense, they are coming up with new products to cure the dreaded disease, and they are under number of FDA approvals for the same. Prologix, as Sir talked about, it's in the real estate space, showing you the diversity within the investment universe. They do not make real estate apartments or residential apartments or even offices. They're more in the logistics space, wherein using analytical tools, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they come up with places where to keep warehousing so as to get higher occupancies, thus driving better returns. We see Aptiv out here in the list. This company is into sensors-based technology, LIDAR, radars, and in terms of the emerging theme of connected and autonomous vehicles, they could be a key gainer in that space.
Arjun, you want to talk about some of the smaller companies also?
Sure. They actually have a very interesting set of companies within the portfolio. And a lot of these ideas are bottom up, as Sir was talking of the TIBR methodology. So within the portfolio, their weightages to the small cap space is much higher than the benchmark, which is 5%. They have almost a 13% holding to get to that idiosyncratic risk which these particular companies do offer. So they have a company called Livent. It's in materials, not just in IT, which comes up with lithium-based compounds and structures, wherein in terms of automobiles in the new battery ecosystem, the electric battery ecosystem, they provide compounds. Secondly, if we look at a company called Genis PLC, another very interesting company. So this company is involved in animal genetics, and they have come out with a product for pigs where the major cause of illness is from the blue ear disease, and they have found a way to cure that particular thing through genetics of the pig itself. In addition, they have Itron Technologies, another very interesting company that looks at grid technology. So they have sensors, network software, and they provide services so as to reduce the cost for the customer for the utility, both electricity and also for water. In addition, in healthcare, they have one other interesting company, one of their large holdings, like we see on the screen, Health Catalyst amongst the large holdings, 1.8%. This looks at all the data points coming across hospitals in the United States, uses that data to ensure costs for hospitals come down and provide better outcomes for the clients in the hospital. So if we look at it on an overall basis, a lot of small cap picking within the portfolio, which should give returns over a period of time, which is higher than the benchmark, given that these are in growth sustainable trends, which they believe should continue to grow over longer periods of time.
Thanks, Arjun. This fund is ideal blend of large cap large cap innovators as well as small cap innovators, old and established technologies as well as new and emerging technologies. It is not only concentrated in IT, but also spread across consumer discretionary, communication services, healthcare, real estate, materials, utilities. It is not only focused in America, but also distributed over Europe, Japan, and other emerging markets. This fund is ideally suitable for those investors who want to create dollar asset for their potential dollar expenditure, like kids' education abroad, or This is meant for those investors who want to diversify their portfolio away from India risk. We are all bullish on India, but some amount of money can be allocated towards such funds which are giving investment opportunity in businesses which don't exist in India. We all use Visa card for making payments, but we don't become part owner of Visa unless we get invested into such funds. And this fund has delivered great performance since its inception by generating an alpha of almost 12%. Coming to cryptocurrencies, where we know very little, but an acclaimed author, Nassim Taleb, says Bitcoin is worthless and blockchain is useless. God knows where the truth will be, but at least Nassim Taleb makes some interesting comments about the frenzy around cryptos. More importantly, in crypto, safekeeping is becoming a genuine risk. AfriCrypt, one of the largest crypto exchange, disappeared with about $3.6 billion in investment. In Brazil, someone who was brand ambassador for Bitcoin was arrested for 300 million embezzlement case. Many people end up trading on an unregulated, unauthorized network, hoping that they have actually bought cryptos and they will be able to benefit when price rises, and later on realizing that they made the payment, but no crypto was allotted to them, or there was no safekeeping of crypto on their behalf. Some of the side effects of crypto: on May 12th, in one day, all cryptos put together lost more than $1 trillion. Investor Mark Cuban, who had invested in a crypto called Titan token, lost significant amount of money when it moved from 64 to near zero in a short period of time. On 12th May, cryptos lost about $1 trillion in value. And similar kind of valuation was created by Microsoft over 44 years, or Apple over 42 years, or Amazon and Google over 20 plus years. In 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, the loss in market cap was $60 billion, and it created greatest financial disaster. In 2021, Dogecoin lost 72 billion in few weeks, and yet people are saying that crypto is future. At some point of time, volatility of crypto will come and impact financial markets all over the world. There is a lot of debate about active versus passive funds and alpha generation. Please remember that even in index fund, most funds are not able to generate alpha. Our index is total return index. It doesn't take into account impact cost. It doesn't take into account transaction cost. It doesn't take into account cash, which is kept for meeting day-to-day liquidity. And which is why across the board, index funds continue to underperform their benchmark indices. It's not just active funds, but also the passive funds which are underperforming index, and in some categories that is as high as 2.3 to 2.4%. We are very happy to say that across all our equity funds, we have been able to generate significant outperformance over benchmark index. And this is without deviating from our core investment philosophy. Across our portfolio, you won't see investment in momentum stocks. And even now, when momentum stocks are running, we still have been able to deliver positive alpha across most of our funds. We have been always recommending you to invest in systematic investment plan, and I am happy to present that we have generated positive alpha across almost all our equity funds over all time periods. This is our small cap fund, alpha of almost 7% plus across 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10-year segment, and 20% plus return across SIPs over 1, 3, 5, 7, and 10 year. If you look at our mid-cap fund, Kotak Emerging Equity, almost 20% plus return in SIP between 1 to 10 year, and alpha generation of almost 3 percentage point, even though we have not invested in momentum stocks, which have really become big part of the index. Kotak Equity Opportunity Fund managed by Harsha Upadhyay. It's a large and mid-cap fund. It has delivered 15% plus SIP return over 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 year. And more importantly, it has added value by outperforming benchmark indices. When the world is telling that funds have underperformed benchmark indices, certainly they are not looking at Kotak Mutual Fund. This is Kotak Tech Saver Fund, another fund managed by Harsha, 15% plus return in SIP and positive alpha across all time period, despite not investing in momentum stocks. Coming to debt market, RBI has ensured that system is having enough liquidity. The CPI inflation has gone up and crossed RBI's comfort level of 6% for the first time in this calendar and financial year. The curve has become steeper in 6 months to 5 year segment and have remained flat over 10 year to 30 year segment. And you could see that 2 year, 3 year yields have gone up significantly compared to 30 and 40 year yields. The 10-year GSEC minus 91-day treasury bill, that gap is narrowing down, and this is happening because short-term yields are going up and the longer-term yields have remained constant. RBI has done a fantastic job in managing current situation. They have managed foreign exchange. They have managed foreign exchange flows. They have managed financial market stability. They have executed massive borrowing program of the government. They have pumped liquidity and they have kept interest rates under control. Clearly, this is one of the all-time great performance of Reserve Bank of India. Next slide, please. On the fixed income side, we believe interest rates will rise over a period of time calibrated by Reserve Bank of India. And in that environment, it will make sense to invest in those debt funds where your investment horizon and fund maturity is in alignment. If you have 3 to 6 months horizon, savings fund will be more appropriate. On a 6 to 9 month horizon, money market fund and low duration fund will be more appropriate. And anything above 3 years, it will be better to go into dynamic bond fund, Kotak bond fund, Kotak banking and PSU debt fund kind of paper. So depending upon your time horizon, if you invest in the fund, this will be best in current circumstances. From a performance point of view, our dynamic fund continues to outperform benchmark indices. Our fund manager, Abhishek Bisson and Deepak Agarwal, continues to manage duration with a view to outperform benchmark indices. And anyone wanting 3 year plus, having 3 year plus horizon and wanting decent return on the fixed income portfolio without taking credit risk, Kotak Dynamic Bond Fund will be appropriate for them. in terms of gilt fund, we are investing in 6-year and around state development loans, and we will also be investing in floating rate bonds. Putting together, this creates kind of roll down impact for fixed income investors. One advice which you should carry to your customers who are invested in debt and who needs regular income, they must try to move from debt to hybrid funds. And within hybrid, we have all kinds of variety available. There is one Kotak Debt Hybrid Fund, which is a conservative debt fund. This is erstwhile known as monthly income plan. Over 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, it has delivered double digit or higher single digit return. It has generated alpha over benchmark index. And clearly, this is one fund required for investors to invest if in order to get slightly higher return and slightly higher risk. Kotak Equity Savings Fund has about 25 to 40% allocation to equity. Balance, they invest in arbitrage products and other fixed income products. Again, it has delivered alpha over 1, 3, and 5 year and delivered higher single digit to double digit return investors. Balanced fund Kotak Equity Hybrid, again alpha all throughout 1, 3, and 5 years and double digit return over 1, 3, and 5 years. These are the funds which one will have to choose in order to generate better return in the fixed income portfolio.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.